Imagine a man whose family tree stretched from Russian aristocrats to Ethiopian nobility. A man whose father spied on Nazi Germany. A man who served in the British Army during World War II. A man who became one of Hollywood's most celebrated actors. And a humanitarian who spent decades helping children around the world. This is the extraordinary story of Sir Peter Ustinov. Born in London on April 16, 1921, Peter Ustinov entered the world carrying one of the most unusual family histories of the 20th century. His full name was Peter Alexander Freiherr von Ustinov, and his ancestry seemed to contain half the world. Peter's father, Jonah von Ustinov, came from a family whose roots stretched across Russia, Germany, Poland, Ethiopia, and Jewish Europe. His grandfather was a Russian baron. His ancestors included German settlers in Ethiopia, Jewish refugees from Krakow, and members of the Ethiopian aristocracy connected to the ancient city of Gondar. Peter's mother, Nadia Benoit, came from one of Imperial Russia's most distinguished artistic families. Her father, Léon Benoit, was a renowned architect. Her uncle, Alexandre Benoit, became one of the most influential stage designers in Europe and worked alongside some of the greatest figures in ballet and music. From the very beginning, Peter Ustinov was surrounded by art, culture, languages, and history. Years later, he would joke, "I am an international citizen conceived in Russia, born in England, working in Hollywood, living in Switzerland, and touring the world." In many ways, it was true. But Peter's childhood was far from perfect. His parents argued constantly. He disliked school and often felt like an outsider. Yet events unfolding across Europe would soon place his family in the center of history. In the 1930s, his father worked at the German embassy in London. As Adolf Hitler rose to power, Jonah von Ustinov secretly began working with British intelligence. He helped provide information about Nazi Germany during a period when Europe was moving steadily toward catastrophe. Peter later claimed that secret meetings involving British and German officials were sometimes held inside their London home. The world was becoming increasingly dangerous, and soon Peter would be drawn into the conflict himself. As a teenager, Peter found refuge in acting. The theatre offered an escape from school and from the tensions at home. He trained at the London Theatre Studio and quickly showed an extraordinary gift, not just for acting, but for accents, languages, writing, and improvisation. In repertory theatre, he sometimes performed with a different accent every night. Audiences were fascinated. Even at a young age, he displayed the wit and versatility that would later make him famous around the world. Then war arrived. When Britain entered World War II, Peter joined the British Army. He served as a private in the Royal Sussex Regiment. Among his most unusual assignments was becoming the Batman, or military dog's body, to actor David Niven, who was serving as a lieutenant colonel. The arrangement was partly practical and partly bureaucratic. Army regulations made it difficult for officers and enlisted men to work closely together otherwise. The friendship between Ustinov and Niven would last for decades. During the war, Peter worked on military films and propaganda productions designed to support the Allied war effort. He appeared in films, wrote scripts, and developed the storytelling skills that would shape the rest of his career. Even in wartime, his creative talents were impossible to ignore. After the war, Peter Ustinov's career exploded. He was no longer simply an actor. He became a playwright, screenwriter, director, novelist, and performer. One of his first major successes came with the play The Love of Four Colonels. Then Hollywood took notice. In 1951, he delivered a memorable performance as the eccentric Roman Emperor Nero in Quo Vadis. The role earned international attention. Audiences loved his intelligence, humor, and ability to dominate every scene. Unlike many actors, Ustinov never relied on conventional leading man looks. His weapon was personality, and few personalities were larger. By the 1960s, Peter Ustinov had become one of the most respected actors in the world. His performance as Lentulus Batiatus in Spartacus won him an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. A few years later, he won a second Oscar for Topkapi. At a time when Hollywood was filled with major stars, Ustinov stood apart. He could play emperors, con men, military officers, philosophers, comedians, villains, or lovable eccentrics. And he could do it all convincingly. Most actors are remembered for one profession. Peter Ustinov mastered several. He wrote plays, directed films, directed operas, hosted television documentaries, published books, performed one-man shows, and became one of the most celebrated storytellers of his generation. His appearances on television became legendary. He could tell a story for 10 minutes and leave an audience laughing from beginning to end. Many considered him one of the greatest raconteurs in modern history. His wit seemed effortless, yet behind it was a brilliant and deeply educated mind. In the late 1970s, Ustinov found another iconic role, the Belgian detective Hercule Poirot. Beginning with Death on the Nile, he brought Agatha Christie's famous investigator to life for a new generation. Unlike later interpretations, Ustinov's Poirot was warm, humorous, and deeply human. Audiences loved him. He returned to the role several times and became one of the most recognizable versions of the character. For many viewers, Peter Ustinov and Hercule Poirot became inseparable. As the years passed, Ustinov increasingly devoted himself to humanitarian causes. He became a Goodwill Ambassador for UNICEF. He traveled extensively, visiting children affected by poverty, conflict, and disease. World leaders respected him. Ordinary people admired him. Children loved him. His ability to connect with people crossed every cultural barrier. He believed that humor and humanity could unite people who were divided by politics, religion, or nationality. It was a philosophy he carried throughout his life. In 1990, Peter Ustinov was knighted. The actor, writer, soldier, and humanitarian became Sir Peter Ustinov. Yet fame never seemed to define him. Instead, he remained curious about people and fascinated by the world. He spent his later years in Switzerland while continuing to write, lecture, and support humanitarian causes. On March 28, 2004, Sir Peter Ustinov passed away at the age of 82. Tributes came from around the globe. Actors remembered his brilliance. Writers praised his intellect. Humanitarian organizations honored his compassion. And millions remembered his unmistakable voice, humor, and wisdom. Peter Ustinov lived many lives in one lifetime. He was the son of spies and artists, a soldier during World War II, a two-time Academy Award winner, a playwright, a director, a storyteller, a humanitarian, and perhaps most remarkably, a man who belonged not to one nation, but to the world itself. His story reminds us that identity can be larger than borders, larger than politics, and larger than history. And that sometimes the most extraordinary lives are the ones that bring many worlds together. This is the extraordinary story of Sir Peter Ustinov.